Finding a reputable business shouldn't require luck or chance. But how can you tell who you can trust? Always look for the sign of a better business and find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Austin Calabaza. I'm the marketing coordinator for the Better Business Bureau serving New Mexico and Southwest Colorado. And with me today is Laureen Rodriguez, owner of Mariposa Marketing.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be here.
And I first met Laureen probably actually 4 years ago now, at the beginning of right before COVID, for a Facebook Career Connections program that they had here in Albuquerque. And she was one of the mentors, I believe, right? You were a mentor?
Yeah, I was. We partnered with Meta for the training for social media managers. Yes, so that's where, yeah, Austin and I connected. And since that first day I met him, I'm like, oh, he's going to be a social media powerhouse for New Mexico. And lo and behold, 4 years later, here he is.
Thank you.
Of course. Austin, you cue me in whenever you want me to jump into content. I'm happy to do so.
Yeah, feel free to get started.
Okay, wonderful. Well, first of all, thank you to the BBB for having me today. I feel super honored as a new-ish member to the BBB. I think my company, we got signed on at the end of last year. So anyways, just to be here with other accredited businesses, it really means a lot today. So thank you, Austin, and team, for the invite. I really appreciate it. And I'm very excited today to talk to you guys about social media. This is one of the topics that I personally am incredibly passionate about. My company will turn 6 years old on April 1st. And truthfully, in this season of life, I celebrate my business birthday more than I celebrate my own birthday. So we're a couple weeks away from celebrating that. And truthfully, just happy and blessed to be on the other side of, the 5-year hump of business ownership, to be on the other side of a global pandemic, and to say that my company survived that. And here we are. And our goal and our mission is to take whatever it is that we know about this topic and to share it with our community so that businesses locally can thrive. So let's go ahead and jump into some of today's content. I'm excited to share that with you. First of all, I want to start with a statement that I think just needs to be said. I think we're ready to hear this message that social media in 2024 is no longer this optional thing. I think back when I entered the industry about, 7-ish years ago, it was kind of one of those things that businesses could decide either to participate or to not. And there wasn't a lot of ramifications if they were to not participate, especially in those earlier years. Well, fast forward to where we are right now in 2024, it really is one of those things that it's just a requirement to have a thriving business. You have to have a thriving social media or digital presence. Now, with all that said, I want to introduce myself. I'm Laureen Rodriguez. I'm CEO of Mariposa Marketing. As I mentioned, our agency turned 6 years old on April 1st of this year, but I'm super excited to also share with you guys that we are a local agency who is passionate about serving the businesses in our community. Over the last 6 years, we've served probably upwards of 250 local clients. And the way that we see that as impact is that our efforts have helped businesses meet their goals. Healthy businesses contribute to healthy employees contribute to their families and to healthy communities. So that's the way we're able to drive impact locally here in our city and state. And as your first social challenge, if you should accept it, I encourage you to take a look at our website, mariposams.com, and or follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Mariposa Marketing Stuff. Take a look at what it is that we're talking about on these channels. We're often sharing local tips for business owners to be able to leverage social media in the best ways possible. Now that we got those intros out of the way, a real quick note. Before everyone hopped on, Austin and I were actually laughing at the fact that behind me, you can see this really blurry weight rack. My at-home office is actually also my at-home gym. So I apologize for any of the fuzziness that you see. Let's all have a good little laugh about it. But all that to say, I'm super excited and happy to be here with you today. So with all of that said here, let's go ahead and talk about the reasons why I believe that you are here today. Now, after compiling 6 years of data and experience with local business owners, here are some of the things that I imagine are what brought you to this webinar today. Number one, social media has been or currently is a pain point for you. It's one of those things that you feel frustration. It stirs up a little bit of trepidation because maybe you haven't mastered it. Maybe it hasn't necessarily worked for you. Nonetheless, it's been a pain point. I also imagine that you're here today because you don't want to be left behind. Maybe as a business owner, you've been looking to the left, looking to the right, seeing your competitors, and you feel like there's other businesses that are just farther ahead than you are at this time. I also imagine that you want your business to stand out. Nobody wants to be a part of a business that's just going to blend in with the crowd. That's not going to create any differentiation between business to business that will allow our businesses to generate more traffic, more sales, and more revenue. So all that to say, I imagine that one of these at least is the reasons why you are here today. Now, with all of that said, I also imagine that you have your fair share of challenges as it pertains to social media. Number one, I imagine that you honestly probably just don't know how to use it effectively. Maybe you use it, you just don't necessarily know if what you are doing is working. I also imagine that you might also not necessarily know what to post and what do people even care about. I also believe that it's possible you just feel overwhelmed by social media in its entirety, and you also feel like you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know how to improve, how can you improve? For a lot of business owners, they're at that point where they feel like, I wouldn't even know how to get better at this if I tried. So with all of that said, I want this to be an interactive presentation. If you could do me a favor and go ahead and hop into the chat, I want to hear from you. Do you feel like your biggest challenge is going to be effectiveness? You don't know if what you are doing is actually working. For you, do you feel like your biggest challenge is that you don't necessarily know what to post? You don't know what your audience will respond to or what will resonate, or you feel like just all of it in general has been a very stressful experience. I'd love to see some of those responses in the chat. That will allow me to gauge where you guys are landing as far as your social media challenges. So feel free, anybody, if you want to drop that in the chat, would love to collect some of that real-time data here. Let's see, anybody, feel free to drop in the chat. But here's my goal out of all of this. Whether you are feeling heavy because you don't know if it's effective, you don't know what to post, or all of it feels like you're just inundated with social media stress, my goal is that today we will leave that stress at the door. More than anything, I want you to see the power of social media for the small business owner and what it could mean for you. And I want you to be able to walk confidently and assuredly knowing that this is a tool that if you can learn how to use it can be very powerful for your business. So whatever stress you brought with you to today's presentation, we're gonna dust it off, we're gonna leave it at the door, we're gonna walk boldly into this next chunk of content. So let's go ahead and understand why social media matters. I think context matters for you to really give your buy-in to social media as a business owner in 2024. Here are some of the things we know to be true. Number one, social media is where people are spending their time. You might have heard I shouldn't say recent, it's several years old, a study that says that our attention span as humans is that of a goldfish. And honestly, I want to say that's a pretty old study. So at this point in time, based on where we are in 2024, I can imagine it's less than that. I'm not necessarily proud of that for humankind, okay? It's more so I'm just the messenger relaying the facts to you about where things are and where they're going. This is only going to increase. The use of social media is only going to increase as time goes on. And so this is something that I want you to take hold of now in 2024 as we are seeing the increase in usage person by person. I also want to mention here, reiterate, that it's no longer optional. It's a necessity to have a digital presence, because here's what I know to be true. If you don't take hold of your social media channels and tell the story of your business, somebody else is going to do it for you. If you leave it up to, for example, organic Google reviews, to tell the story of what your business is and who you are. And let's say that those reviews in this season just honestly aren't that good. The public is going to gather information about your business wherever they can find it. So if you're not necessarily controlling that content and that media to be what you want people to know about you, they're going to get it somewhere else. They're going to find out from other people who might not have the ins and outs. They might not fully understand your business, what you offer, and why you're different. I also want you to know that it can be a very powerful way for your business to stand out. This is incredible low-hanging fruit for the businesses that haven't taken full hold of social media. Here's what I know at the end of the day, whether you are an incredibly large corporation or you are the mom and pop small business down the street, everyone has access to the same tools. Now, we might not all have the same following, but we all have access to the same tools, meaning we can all head over to our social media platforms and we can all post without needing to pay. Yet, so far, these are actually still free platforms. I don't know for how long that will be in the case, but for now, everybody has the same access. And for that reason, I want you to be able to see that the tool that the large corporation is using is one that you can take hold of yourself and leverage it for your benefit. Now, let's jump into for the people who feel like they just don't know whether or not they're using it effectively. If that is you, it looks like, let's see. Okay, so it looks like the chat is now active. So feel free to drop in the chat if you feel like this is your biggest qualm with social. You don't know if you're using it effectively. You're using it, but you don't know if it's working. So with that said, feel free to send any responses there. I'll go ahead and gather those. But this is what we're going to talk about today, how to make sure we're using it effectively. Now, before we get into that, I want to jump into a little true or false, so that we can unpack some of this. And I want to make sure you guys have a good and steady approach to the content that you're putting out there and the reasons why you're putting it out there. So true or false, viral videos mean a guaranteed increase in sales. True or false? If you are able to drop your thoughts into the response, into the chat.
Lucina said true.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other brave souls willing to vote?
Anna said, is this a trick question? Allie said false. Marissa said false. Juan said false. Kimberly said false.
Okay, you guys, I love the mix-up. I love the mix-up, that there's some mystery behind this. Well, before I give you the answer, we're going to jump into some content. I will share the answer with this at the end. I just got to keep you guys on your toes. I got to make sure you stay awake for this, okay? So stay on the edge of your seat. We will get to the response soon. So before we jump into the answer to that, here's where I'm leading. I want businesses out there to make sure that before you jump on social media and start posting, you'll only know if what you're doing is effective if you determine a goal first. So I see this all the time with businesses. It's like they're just posting, hoping that something will generate a result that for them is worth it. There's not a lot of roadmap as to what the end destination is and how they're going to get there. And so my goal is that I can impart to you the importance of understanding your goal first, because every goal will determine a different path. The same way, if you were to put a destination in Google, you're going to have a completely different route to get there than if you had another destination. The goal that you have for social media is going to be a different destination. So you're going to need a completely different route to get there. Now, here are some of the objectives that you can set, the goals you can set for your social media. My hope is to provide clarity to you about this today. So the first one is your goal visibility or local visibility, right? If you are looking to get your content in front of eyeballs, chances are this is probably your biggest objective, your biggest goal. Next, social media, you might be using it to gather leads, contacts, sales. You really want to see it as a primary sales channel and revenue driver. If that's the case, you're probably looking specifically at that. And then next, if you are using social media to become an industry authority, that will require a completely different strategy than sales or visibility. But a lot of people do this because they want to make sure that their channels are accurate, they're displaying authority and legitimacy. Each of these objectives is going to be different based on each business. And in fact, there's a few others that aren't listed here. The goal of what I'm trying to say is that it's important to know which of these actually matters to you. Let's keep going. I think it'll make more sense as we continue. As I mentioned earlier, your goal will determine your strategy. And these are not going to be the same strategy. For example, if you care about sales, your strategy might not necessarily be the same as if you care about visibility. Each one will require some different tactics to help you reach that specific goal. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help small business owners think more strategically about what it is that they're putting out there and why they're putting it out there. This will help you to determine whether or not it's effective. If you are wanting local visibility or visibility in general, you're going to look for things like this. You're going to be the person who's looking for eyes on your content. You want virality. You want the greatest reach. And these are going to be the things that honestly keep you up at night. If you're posting content and no one's necessarily seeing it and visibility is your goal, then you're able to determine, hey, am I reaching the metric that I've set for myself? So these are the things that you're going to look for if visibility is really what you want to leverage social media for. Now, if you're someone who cares about sales, then you're going to be measuring specifically its effectiveness based on the metric of sales, closings, contacts, or leads. So as you can see, if you're measuring sales, it's not necessarily going to mean the same thing as measuring visibility. I'm hinting to the answer to our true or false, okay? And lastly, if you want authority and legitimacy, you're going to be focusing on different approaches such as accuracy and reputation, having enough activity, educating your audience. Each of these, as you can see, is going to be a different strategy. Now, it's possible you can have overlap. It is possible that you can have, for example, you are focusing on authority with hopes of increasing sales. But it's important to set out those objectives. They can happen concurrently, but it's important to differentiate and understand where the line is so that you can understand and measure yourself accurately. If you don't know what you're measuring, how can you ever deem it as effective or ineffective? Here's a couple of examples I want you guys to see. Let's say that if you are a business that your revenue is generated from government contracting, you might not necessarily care about sales or visibility. You may not care about whether a lot of people see your content, nor whether or not it generates sales, because your revenue is coming from government contracting. But what you probably do care about is that the information on your pages is accurate, that you are deemed as a legitimate professional business in the case that they are vetting your digital presence. As you can see here, that's an example of where you're not necessarily going to be focused on the other two because you know exactly what you're there to do. It simplifies your approach to the entire thing. Next, for an example, if you use social media as your sales channels, you won't necessarily be so focused on visibility. So here's where, if let's say you have a post and not thousands of people see it, but let's say you get a few solid leads from one post that maybe has a few hundred people that saw it, because you're not worried about visibility, you're not worried about thousands of people seeing it, you're worried about it generating leads, contacts, and sales, you might deem that as effective. And so that's where it matters to differentiate, because if you're looking at the wrong metric, you might be undercutting your efforts because you're not necessarily measuring yourself against apples to apples, so to speak. So let's continue here. I want to give you guys a case study. So a quick little note about me. My husband and I own a couple of side businesses, and one of those is a business called Chatterpaint. Shameless plug if you haven't checked out Chatterpaint. It's an interactive paint experience. It's fun for the whole family. We host a ton of birthday parties, family events, friend events. It's where you get to gear up in gear and you actually get to do a blacklight paint war. If you haven't checked it out, you need to. But here's a case study I want to share with you guys. So we took ownership of this business last August, and truthfully at this point in time, Me and my team are so capped on being able to service the clients that we have on our roster that we haven't necessarily been able to put in the full effort that we want to frequency of posting. But here's where this whole strategy thing works for me. I know my objective of this channel right now is sales. I need this channel to be booking birthday parties for me. So for me, in that case, here's what I've done. I'm not able to post a lot right now. For example, I'm posting 3 to 4 times monthly, maybe once a week. However, what I am doing is I'm running a daily $10 spent on ads. And these ads are generating those sales that I need. So for me, in my mind, time is money. I don't necessarily have the means to go spend hours a week creating content, but what I can do is run an ad that will specifically target what I'm needing, which is sales and bookings. And through that, every single month, I'm able to see that $10 a day. It comes up to about $300 a month. I'm able to see that return in thousands of dollars of actual parties booked. So am I worried about visibility? I'm not, because my goal is sales. So I'm not concerned when I do post. We don't have a big following. I'm not concerned that only a handful of people are seeing it. At this point in time, about 10 to 15% of your following is actually seeing your content. And that's across the board. I'm not worried about that because I'm hitting the metric of getting sales. So I hope you guys are starting to see the power in starting with an objective, not just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that it sticks. So what is going to be your next step for this? You're going to decide why you want to be on social media. You're going to think about what is your actual goal with all of this and what is your actual objective. And from there, you're going to start to reframe the way you see your efforts on social media. It's going to be done with intentionality, and you're going to do things with a plan and strategy in place. So let's go back to the answer to this question here. Answer: false. Viral videos do not always mean an increase in sales. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. Many a times, I have seen videos go viral that generate minimal actual results. A lot of people see it, but it doesn't create a big influx of followers. A lot of people see it, but it doesn't create an influx in following. So that's where I don't want you to be deceived into assuming that virality is the key to the other metrics. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is. Just because a lot of people see your content doesn't mean they react, and it doesn't mean that they convert. So I busted that myth today. Hopefully that's something you put in your back pocket for the future. Okay, so let's say that your biggest qualm about social media is that you don't know what to post. You don't know what your audience wants to know about. You don't necessarily know what is worth posting. And so let's say you get to the creative process, you want to post something, and you actually end with, I have no idea what I'm going to say today. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that. Not without hitting another true or false. True or false, love to hear your responses on this. Mastering social media is a matter of figuring out the algorithm. Mastering social media is a matter of figuring out the algorithm. Feel free to put those responses in the chat. Would love to hear your thoughts on that as we move into this section of the presentation.
Okay. So I was going to say, Drew said false, Lucina said false, Anna said false, Kimberly said false as well.
Okay. Oh, you know what I'm sensing? I'm sensing some what's the word? I'm sensing that everyone's kind of seen the algorithm as this big bad villain. Right? That's actually, and honestly, so many people see it as that. And I'm seeing that there's a lot of distrust for the way the algorithm works, which you'll just have to wait and see. We will get to the answer after a few slides here. So stay on the edge of your seat. Okay, so how do we determine our content? Well, there's a few things that I want to encourage you to do before you start setting out and creating content. The first is considering your objective. We just talked about that. Next is analyzing your audience, knowing who it is you are talking to. And lastly, it's considering the platform. Let's talk more about that. So when considering your objective, here's how it's going to determine what you post. So for example, let's say that you are hyper focused on visibility. You want to be able to have some videos go viral. Awesome. Here's some of the things you're going to want to implement that will help to move the needle based on your specific objective. Number one, having video. Video at this point is helpful to beef up your page as far as the possibility of going viral, especially short form videos. So that's going to be at this point, I would say, anything, it's hard to gauge. Some people consider it 90 seconds or less. Honestly, at our agency, we probably keep it at 30 seconds or less, but having some of those shorter videos will help you with that. Also layering in trending audio. So these are these songs that these platforms give you that if you use this audio, there's a chance that they will allow your video to catch on and it will be shown to more people. Is this a guarantee? No, but it does increase the possibility and probability. And then lastly is trends. So if you ever see any of these trends where I'll go back to the whole COVID TikTok era, right? All of a sudden, all these dancing videos started coming out and you started to see all of these people take on these different trends. That's what it is. When something catches and you see you have a short window to jump into this form of content with the hopes that you get higher visibility, that's something that you're going to want to do if you're focused on visibility. Now, let's say that you're focused on sales and leads. Okay, well, in that case, you're going to want to make sure you are very clear about your services, your offerings, and your promotions. Those are going to be the topics of content that you want to layer in. Now, does that mean that every post you're putting out is going to be salesy? No, there's unique ways to do this where you're able to do it through storytelling, through testimonials, through other unique ways rather than saying, hey, buy from us, buy from us, buy from us. Nonetheless, you're going to know what your mind is on when you're creating that content based on that call to action. Now, lastly, if you're looking to establish yourself as an authority in your industry, you want to make sure that your pages are there for legitimacy. You'll probably want to include content like education and testimonials. Now, let's say that you did want that authority and legitimacy. Would it be appropriate to include some of those fun dances and trends? Honestly, it's going to depend on the platform, but that's why I want you guys to be aware of the different considerations so that you can decide with discernment, is this something that would help to move the needle on my objective, and is this appropriate for my page? Now, I also want you guys to become hyper familiar with your audience. Here are some of the things that you need to understand in order to decide what are the things you're going to be posting about. So first is asking yourself about your audience. What do they care about? What are the things that my audience cares about, and how can I meet them where they are in their interest? Next is, where do they spend their time? Is my audience going to be a heavy Instagram user, heavy Facebook user, heavy TikTok user? You're going to want to know some of those things about where to find this particular audience. Also, what are their social media usage habits? When are they online? When are they most active? How are they using the platforms for themselves? And then lastly, you want to ask yourself the question, well, why do they even follow me in the first place? You want to gain an understanding for what actually brought them to your page in the first place, so you can start to meet them where they are and provide them the value and the information about why they came to your page in the first place. Lastly, you're going to want to consider the platform. So believe it or not all platforms are created equal. Each platform has its own use, its own tendencies that people follow when they're on the platform. Here's some of the things I want you to be able to know about each one to be able to decide if this platform is going to be a good one for you. So the first one would be Facebook. So Facebook would help you to would be really good to help you reach a local audience. If you're a local small business, Facebook is a good place for that. Facebook is a good place if you are taking on the legitimacy and authority side and you want to educate your customers. So this is a place where people are okay with learning on this platform. For a lot of people, it's become a way that they're able to gather educational content. Facebook is a place where you are welcome to share articles. You're welcome to share other people's content just due to the easy accessibility to use the share feature. Facebook is a place where people are coming to get updates about news, events, and where they are really pouring into those personal and likely family connections. Now, Instagram is a little bit different than Facebook in a couple of ways. Number one, Instagram has people who are more interested in the behind the scenes. Instagram is a place where you are able to cultivate really intimately a community of followers, of people who are loyal to you and your business and your brand. And part of that is by allowing your audience on Instagram to really see the ins and outs of who you are and what you have to offer. It really is a place where if you share more personally, depending on who your audience is, it's okay, and that you have permission to do that, because people are really craving that depth on the Instagram platform. Instagram is good for both local and non-local audiences. And also Instagram is a place where you can promote and share your products. Now, TikTok is going to be, if you are located in New Mexico, there is an emerging little corner of TikTok called New Mexico TikTok, where there are more creators entering the TikTok world. There are more users. It's not necessarily nearly as large as the Meta products, but it is growing. And so TikTok is going to be for those who are going heavy video, and if you are looking for local and or non-local audiences. Now, the local audience for New Mexico, like I said, it's not as strong as the other platforms, but it's growing. And if your product or service is trying to reach non-local, this is where it can be very powerful for you, because TikTok has access to all different kinds of communities and people globally. Also, TikTok is where you would want to utilize a lot of those trends that can increase the visibility on your content. And then lastly, LinkedIn. LinkedIn, to clarify, is going to be if you are B2B, business to business, and or business to business leader. If your audience is not necessarily a business entity itself, but your audience target would be CEOs or high level positions, this would also be a good place to target it. So when your audience on the other side is related to business, LinkedIn would be a good place to put time and effort into. If you guys need some ideas, I just went ahead and threw together a quick little list. If this could help you get past the creative hump, depending on your objectives, some of these may work. Feel free to screenshot this slide. Number one, you could introduce yourself. People want to know who they're working with. Introduce your staff. People like to know who they're working with. I'll use a quick case study for us. A recent client of ours, we are servicing a local locksmith, and for that locksmith, someone coming into your home, they really want to know if this person is safe, or can I trust this person to enter my home, right? Especially females might tend to have that trepidation. So one of the big pieces of content we've been putting out there is letting people know about that these are trusted professionals, so that we can bring down that wall that people might have toward having outsiders in their home. You can do this by showing your staff. Next is showing the real side of the business, right? Social media, a lot of people have gained a distrust for it because you only show the best parts of it. Well, one thing you can do to combat that is show the real side. Take followers behind the scenes, show before and after. People love to see results photos, and this tends to be a high sales driver. Also offer tips and tricks, offer value so that people are able to see before you ask them for anything. They feel like you've deposited some value into their life. Give a sneak peek into a new product or service that you might be offering. Show how something is made. Share testimonials. Share details about your services and or projects, or offer a special promotion or coupon. So your next step is to really assess, know what you're posting, why you're posting it, and who you're posting it for. Hopefully you guys are starting to see a trend with what I'm trying to say, that we want to make sure what we're doing on social media, we're doing it intentionally and we're doing it on purpose for the right reasons. Now let's jump into that quick answer here. So false. The algorithm is a moving target and there's no set formula. So all of you falsies out there, you were right, because here's what I know about the algorithm. And this is after managing, at this point, we've contributed to hundreds of social media channels in the state. There's no one formula that I could give you that if I say, if you do X, you will get Y. There's so many factors that are a part of this big ethereal villain called the algorithm that I can't give you a formula that will tell you exactly how to crack the code and get the result that you want. So I want you guys, if that was something you were hoping for, I think what could be powerful for you is to kind of let go of that mindset of, if I could just figure it out, if I can just do this one thing. It'll be the breakthrough to all of these things that I need. I think it's more so being able to commit to consistency and to have a plan in place, and to decide that whatever you do on social media, you're going to be doing it intentionally and on purpose. For all of the people who said, I don't know what I don't know, how do I even know if I'm doing it right? And how do I keep learning? This section is going to be for you. So let's start with a quick true and false. The more platforms, the better. The greater presence you will have, the more platforms that you are on. Feel free to cue in with your responses in the chat here. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Allie said false. And then one thing that she did say earlier, at your last true or false question, was false. There are some great local groups that you can share to that boost your views. And I was going to say, that's one of the ways that we get out a lot of our events. Like for example, next month we're having our biannual Shred Day, and we're part of local community groups, local business groups here in the Albuquerque metro area. And I will share that information about Shred Day into those groups. And it just reaches a larger network that we don't have access to. So great.
I love that tactic, Austin. I love that because it allows you to find these little micro communities and create content that is specifically relevant for them. Now, each group kind of has its own parameters as to how and what you can share, but if you follow the rules and you stay within the bounds, you're absolutely right. It allows you access to these little micro communities, depending on what pages you're promoting. You are able to open up an entirely new audience of people who you for certain know care about what you have to say.
For sure.
Love it.
Drew also said false. Kimberly said false. Lucina said true. Evangel said it depends on strategy, objective, resource, etc. Anna said false.
Okay, I feel like y'all are catching on to me, but I won't reveal the answer till the end of this section, okay? So let's go ahead and jump into some of the things I just generally think that you should know about social media in order to take it to the next level in 2024. I think the first thing is that when in doubt, don't be afraid to try some things out. As I've mentioned, we have contributed to hundreds of local pages here in Albuquerque and in the state of New Mexico. And honestly, there's no one thing that has worked for one that works identically for another. But I think more so it's the mindset and the idea of being willing to try some new things, being willing to be open enough to an idea that maybe you saw someone else do it, maybe it's an idea you had for yourself. Nonetheless, being willing to try some different formats, some different types of content, some different platforms, as long as it aligns with your objective, and being able to say, you know what, and if it doesn't go exactly the way that I planned, that's okay, because I'm going to gather the data from that decision and I'm going to allow it to, whether it worked in my favor or not, it can be something I use to mark my next decision as far as my strategy and my goals on social media. I also think it's very important to adjust your mindset that social media is an investment. So before I launched my social media agency 6 years ago, I worked as a saleswoman for Univision. I sold TV and radio ads. And back then, I couldn't believe TV and radio primarily, but through that we were integrated through some other mediums such as outdoor. I got to know a lot of all of these things, and I couldn't believe the amount of time and money people were spending on these traditional media campaigns. Now we're talking into the 5 figures, sometimes 6 figures on an annual basis for things that now looking back, I'm like, it's mind blowing. How do you know if you're looking for conversions, if a TV ad is providing that, if a billboard's providing that, if a radio ad is providing that? And so I think the shift that I'd love to see is moving into 2024 and beyond, that the same way some of these larger local businesses are willing to invest in those types of media, that they would put the same effort toward their social media. And it's possible that maybe they haven't done that yet because they don't have a big following or audience there. Nonetheless, I think it's a mindset shift of accepting that social media isn't going anywhere and it is an investment just like any other paid form of media. Now, if you do paid ads on social, awesome, that's great. But even if you're using it organically, just the idea that you need to put in order to get out. It's not going to happen on its own. And it is something that it's here and it's here to stay. I'd really love to see that mindset shift. I think that would change a lot of things for a lot of people. And then lastly, I want to make sure to mention that it's important to be consistent when at all possible and to not overthink it. I think that something that I tend to see with business owners when we first meet with them is the whole thing feels incredibly daunting because they don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. They feel like they need to be on everything. And so they're spreading themselves so thin across so many things that none of it is effective or working or bringing any result. And in turn, it's just generating a bunch of stress. So I think at the end of the day, my recommendation is to be consistent when at all possible and try to keep it simple. I think simplifying will help a lot of people get over this social media hump. So my recommendation, honestly, you guys, I'm going to recommend start small. Start with one objective, 1 to 2 platforms, and posting 1 to 2 times consistently on a weekly basis. I think at this point, that's something that it's probably doable for a lot of people. And you might be overlooking the opportunities to be consistent because you're looking for volume of platforms. This is going to help you to get laser focused on maybe it's 1 or 2 platforms that you really hone in on and do the best you can with those platforms specifically. That would be 100% my recommendation. So then let's go ahead and jump into the answer. For a lot of you who said false, you are correct. Less is more. Focus on less platforms with consistency and try not to overcomplicate it. So here's my thoughts. If you are hearing that you need to be on every platform just because it exists, I want you to go ahead and squash that myth right now. I would much rather you select 1 to 2 that are really going to make sense for you. So if you are a business, for example, located in New Mexico, would I say that I understand X is there, right? It's one of those things that it's available. Should you be on it? X, formerly known as Twitter. I can't answer that for you, but some things to think about. There's not a massive New Mexico audience for consumers. It is used a lot for news and information. A lot of the larger organizations use it as a primary news source. But as far as you reaching that audience, because you know who you're trying to talk to, is that going to be the best place to spend your time? You're going to have to be the one to decide that. But I'd venture to say you should probably take a second look at it. Just because someone told you need to be on there doesn't mean that it's true. So look at each opportunity with those same eyes of intentionality so you can decide the best places to spend your time. Here's a few little bonus strategies I want to share with you guys. Some things you may or may not have tried as a business owner in 2024. Number 1, try some ads at a budget that works for you. So as I mentioned before, I spend $10 a day on my side business, $300 a month. But the beautiful thing about social media ads, you can pick a budget that works for you. Maybe it's $5 a day. Maybe it's $5 a day for half of the month. Whatever it might be, pick a budget that works for you and give it a shot. Give it a try. Try some of these paid additions to some of your content and watch the boost and the gasoline that it gives you behind it. We can't forget the fact that Meta is a business. And why are they decreasing reach from the organic side? Well, it's because they want you to pay for ads. Just like any other business, they're finding revenue generating things to do to encourage you to spend money. And so the good thing about it is that when you do, for the most part, when I've done this for my business and my clients, we see a really fruitful return. So don't be afraid to try that. Another bonus strategy I want to share with you guys is to collaborate and share audiences. So one feature that my agency has been using really frequently is when you go to Instagram and you create a reel, you now have the ability to add a collaborator. So let's say you're a business that does a lot of community work and there's a lot of local organizations that you partner with. For example, the BBB. If I were to go post a reel today on my page and I'm promoting this, I can invite the BBB New Mexico and Colorado chapter as a collaborator. Well, when I do that, if they accept my invite, my content is now shared with their audience and vice versa. If they were to do the same for me and I accept, they're now opening up their promotion to anyone on my page who happens to see it. So this is a really unique new way to be able to add collaborator or collaborators. You can add multiple on one form of content on Instagram, and it allows you for higher visibility. And then lastly, I would mention that I think it's really important to master content creation on your phone. I think for a lot of people, they feel held back because they don't necessarily know if their phone is going to be enough to create high quality content. You guys, as an agency, a lot of the content that we're putting out there is created on a regular old iPhone. Not necessarily anything fancy. I do recommend, if you have access to purchase a gimbal, that will be an absolute game changer as far as the quality of your video. But nonetheless, an iPhone has incredible power that I encourage you to leverage. Also, I want to make mention here of a couple of free bonus tools. I am someone who's always trying to save anybody money. So these are two tools that I would recommend. If you have not used them yet, go download them on your phone, or start using them on desktop as well. But the two that I recommend, ChatGPT. If you have not used ChatGPT for ideas, strategy, copy ideas, I recommend that you do so. I'm not saying take anything that ChatGPT generates and then just absolutely use it without putting your human touch on it. No, you still need to review, use discernment in all you do to make sure it's going to be in alignment with your objective and your audience. Nonetheless, start doing it. If you don't, I can assure you, your competitor is going to, if you give them that window that you refuse to start using it, you give someone else the chance. You will get left behind in this regard if you don't implement AI in some way. This is not going anywhere either. I also will mention CapCut for quick video editing and reel editing. This is an app that you can download on your phone, so especially if you have video clips, makes it incredibly easy. Yesterday I downloaded a reel. It took me about 8 minutes to make in CapCut, and it's a tool that we use at our agency, and it's free. It's free. There is a pro version, but you can start with the free version and not have to invest anything into it. So with all of that said, I have left a little bit of a window at the end here to touch on your specific questions. I would be happy to answer anything that you bring to the table as far as your social media strategy, your content, or just any way that I can bring value. I would be happy to do that today. That concludes my section of the presentation, and I would now like to open it up for some questions. Austin, you may be seeing them on your side.
Yeah. So Allie made a comment earlier. She said that the business suite on Facebook has a planner where you can plan to post on both Facebook and Instagram. This helps me in making sure that I hit my 4 times a week goal, and I can plan almost a month ahead.
Love it. Yes, I will say using the Meta Business Suite tool, which is available to all business owners for free, zero investment, once again, saving you some money, does allow for planning of your content as far as Facebook and Instagram goes. And it is a tool that I definitely recommend using. We do use it at our agency. Thanks, Allie.
And Marissa's question was, could you go over some ChatGPT tips?
Yes. Okay. Actually, I was just working on it this morning. I'm going to pull up some of the content that I have for that. Okay. So for ChatGPT, you can use it for a plethora of things as far as your social media. Some of the things that you can use it for are content ideas and content strategy. And what I will say is, the more that you can give it in your prompt, the better the output on the other side. And it really likes details. So the more details that you can provide, the better output you're going to get. In fact, I was doing an example today where I'll read you the prompt and you can kind of see what I did here. But I was trying to allow it to give me some ideas. I was using this for an example for another presentation about how to use it for, let's say you're having a creative block that day, but you need to put some things together. So what I told it was, act as a social media manager for a plumbing company in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Your goal of the channels is to increase leads and establish a local name. There are lots of other plumbing companies in the city, and you want to create something that is different and that stands out and that will get the phone ringing. Give me a list of 10 unique content ideas that will drive sales and strengthen the local footprint. So in that process, as you can see, a couple of the things you probably heard me do, I told it how to act. I gave it a position. I said, act as a social media manager. I gave it the industry for a plumbing company. I gave it my location. And then I asked it exactly what to do. I let it know that I needed unique ideas because there's already local competitors that I want to be able to stand out from those. And so you can see that the best thing I could tell you to do is to give it as much context as possible. And sometimes you might see prompts of 2-3 paragraphs because those details matter. And when you're able to do that, the system is learning your needs so that it can provide better outputs for you. I hope that helps.
A question from Anna. She said, is Instagram okay to use for legitimacy, or is Facebook preferable?
I'd say Facebook is probably the first place for legitimacy. It depends who's trying to legitimize you. I would say because the two platforms are so interconnected and it's easy to keep them with shared content, I would say putting equal weight just because of the accessibility to do so would probably be my recommendation. Not necessarily to say that somebody would go legitimize your government contract on Instagram, but it would be good to make sure that if they did, you had a page that was active, legitimate, accurate, all of those types of things. Now, if you are looking to become an industry authority, I think that's where Instagram can really come into play, because it is a place where people really do want to closely and intimately connect with people, and that's one way you can leverage Instagram in that way. Maybe not as much for legitimacy, but for authority. I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Great. So we have time for one more question. So Ivy's question was, I've run paid ads on LinkedIn and we get a lot of views, but no followers specifically from the ads. Our following is only growing from organic content on LinkedIn. Steady organic growth. What do you recommend for paid ads for LinkedIn, with the goal to grow a larger following? Loyal followers being B2B. Should we hold off on paid ads on Instagram? And she said that their Instagram paid ads do great.
Okay, I would say from the LinkedIn side, for LinkedIn ads, if you're trying to increase your following there, I'm trying to figure out for your industry specifically. I think the biggest part is making other businesses care about what it is that you do. I think that's the biggest part on LinkedIn. It's possible that you have a service that not every person on LinkedIn is going to, it's not going to resonate with everybody. But I think if there's a way to frame your industry that the general public can care about it, they'll provide you with a follow. For example, if someone's not necessarily looking for construction services, so to speak, but let's say that you are spinning that and now you're offering news and updates about new additions to the city, and you have the insider info because you are in the construction industry, you have your ear to the ground about new builds. Okay, well, maybe now someone has an inclination to follow you, even if they're not looking for your services, but now you might be seen as the place where there's new updates about new things coming, new builds coming to town. So I think that's part of it, is how do you spin your content to make it interesting to a greater audience than just those who you might be targeting as of right now. And I think that takes a little bit of a creative knack. You can leverage ChatGPT to give you some ideas on how to do that. But that's what I would say. I would also say LinkedIn, I think it's very much how you go out and connect is how you receive. And so if you can, on behalf of your page, go out and connect with some of the businesses that you want to be affiliated with, you want to be connected with, it might have to be you prompting that engagement, prompting that and initiating that in order to get that activity back. So maybe you do go more of an organic approach. It's going to take more time to do that, but it will be more connective. It will be more direct than throwing an ad out and hoping that somebody responds to it.
Anna just added one more little tidbit. She just said, Anna's was, we're a construction company with set contracts, not really looking for sales, but was thinking about using Instagram for photos and videos of what we do. A mixture of visibility and legitimacy, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's a fair, those are fair objectives to have. Legitimacy and visibility, and by showcasing your existing projects, not necessarily leaning on it to be a primary sales channel. I think that's a fair approach.
Awesome. Well, I think that was all the questions that we had today.
Awesome.
And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us or Lorraine. Her information is right there. We'll also share the webinar with everyone that registered. So if there's something that you need to rewatch later in the future, we'll share that with you. And then, as always, we try and do monthly webinars with content that resonates with our accredited businesses. And with that, I just wanted to say, thank you to Laureen for putting together this wonderful webinar. Social media marketing in general is something that our accredited businesses have consistently asked for. So I'm glad we were able to deliver on that.
Awesome. Well, I'm so grateful and blessed to be here. I wish all of you the most success in 2024. And should you ever need anything, as he mentioned, my contact info is right there. We're always open to helping our community. So thank you, Austin, and thank you to the BBB.
Thank you all.
Have a great day, everybody.
Finding a reputable business shouldn't require luck or chance. But how can you tell who you can trust? Always look for the sign of a better business and find a better business anytime at bbb.org.